Welcome to the Ardan Labs Podcast. Our special guest today is Nikunj Bajaj. Hi Nikunj, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me on the show, Ali. Super excited to be speaking with you here.
Awesome. Tell our audience and everybody that's listening to us and looking at us, where are you right now and where are you dedicating your time today?
I'm Nikunj, co-founder CEO at TrueFoundry. I'm based in the Bay Area, and we had a word with Ali. She wanted to talk a little bit about founder journey and share the story with the listeners on the podcast, and was would love to give it back to the community.
What can you tell me? Not give it all away, but what is True Foundry about?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. True Foundry is an AI infrastructure company where we focus on a product called AI Gateway. Think of this as a routing layer where all of your AI components then go through the gateway. So components like your models, your agents, whatever you're building within the company goes through the gateway, and with that you get complete observability on your AI stack, and you can also start enforcing your policies and governance on top of everything that's happening in AI within the company. So I think that's the core product that we're building here.
Oh, so people will get your product and it will put in there all the agents, all the models, and the your company will take care of all the layers, like let's say security issues and all that. Like that's what it does.
That's right. Yes. Yes. It's
Okay.
like a pipe through which your AI traffic is flowing, and then you can look into the pipe, you can make changes to the traffic, so you basically get back in control because everything is going through that pipe.
Oh, okay. It's like a one point stop to check on all your models and what's going on under the hood.
That's right. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, Nikunj. Right now, we're gonna start taking a journey to the past and we're gonna travel all the way to the present. But for that, you're gonna have to tell me where were you when you were in your like last years of higher education, like high school here? And how old were you? And which year was that? Like I'm gonna age you real bad right now, but it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, I think it's already clear that I'm getting super old by looking at my head, so I do not mind it at all anymore. So I'm born and brought up in this city in India called Calcutta. It's on the eastern side of India. I basically grew up in the same house, like from my birth all the way until my higher education, higher secondary. I was in the same house, grew up with the same set of friends. So a very grounded upbringing, I guess. Right, and this was in year 2007. I was finishing up my final year of my higher secondary, and after that I moved for my undergrad to one of the IITs back in India.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, you're not that old because by 2007, when you were finishing higher education, I was having my first kid. So you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, very good, very good.
Okay. So explain to me, like, tell me how is higher education in India? Because I have the feeling that it's a little different from the US. So how does it work over there?
Right. And by the way, just to be clear, when I'm referring to higher education, I meant actually higher secondary here. So like I'm still not talking about like the actual
No, you mean,
undergrad,
right, right.
undergrad, like it's class
We're
11th
talking
and
about
12th.
like high school, right? Like
Yeah,
still
high school.
school,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you live with your parents all the way through high school,
That's right.
and yeah, like very. I was born in Colombia, in South America, and it's very similar. You usually live with your parents, and sometimes even until if you're a girl, even until you get married, you live with your parents.
Makes
Like you
sense.
don't go
Makes
anywhere
sense.
to college. Like usually
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So you were with your parents, and you were in Calcutta, and you were finishing higher education.
yeah.
At that point in time, were you interested in like computers and stuff like that? Or what was Nikunj you doing at that point in time? Like what were your interests? What made you think and tickle about time?
For sure, for sure. Let me share some of that story with you. In India, when you're starting to prepare for engineering and stuff, there is actually a very competitive exam that you have to go through. It's an entrance exam that you have to go through. It's like the SATs of the world. It's called JEE. Like IIT is one of the more reputed engineering colleges in India, and to get into IIT, you go through a fairly competitive exam. Okay, so oftentimes after you have finished your secondary school class 10th, and you get to your high school basically, which is 11th and 12th, if you aspire to do engineering from IIT, you pretty much devote the 2 years of your life to just prepare for that exam, right? So I was one of those kids that decided to do that. And I am not one of those kids who dreamt about IIT growing up, right? Like, I did not even know the concept of IIT, and this is one of the prestigious schools growing up. After I was finishing my class 10th, I was trying to figure out, what discipline will I choose? Will I study more arts, more commerce, right, more science, etc.? And what am I really interested in? Started talking to lots of people who have gone through that journey, and slowly started figuring my way out. Okay, this overall sounds interesting because some of the stuff that you learn about engineering is like grounded in maths and physics, subjects that I really enjoyed, right? So that basically led me to that path.
Okay, so you right when you decide to go into engineering, I'm an industrial engineer. So when you decide to go that way, it's because like you like math and you enjoy the all those things. Like you're blissfully unaware that when you go to college, you're like a lot harder than it was when it was in high school. But then again, you have to go through to 2 years of studying for this test. And was it something like very competitive, or it was like something that just certain people would take, or it was like very dog eat dog kind of fight?
I like to think it's extremely competitive. To put it into perspective, like during our time, we had probably more than 500,000 students who would appear for that exam, and
Wow.
that 500,000 as well, there's like a much larger chunk in India that actually gives similar exams but not quite IIT, because lots of people just decide not to give IIT entrance exam because it's just too competitive, too difficult. So it's already a
Okay.
subset of people who think there is a chance that they can crack it. And from there, in our time, maybe about like 5,000 6,000 people got selected. So I do think it's a from a numbers perspective, it's a fairly competitive exam. It's also I would like to think it was also fairly difficult to just go through that preparation itself. Yeah.
Okay, and then does that preparation goes through like your school, like your school where you go to for secondary 11 and 12th grades? Do they provide that, or you have to go out of the school and like people do here to go to tutoring centers or something like that, or was something that the school itself took care of it?
The latter, you have to go through the tuitions. Typically, school would not provide the level of education, the kind of details that you need to get through to go through these entrance exams, and that too, it depends particularly in the city that you are from. So actually, as I mentioned, that I'm coming from Calcutta. I was born and raised in Calcutta, and there isn't that much of a charm or an ecosystem. At least we didn't have it back then within Calcutta to prepare for these entrance exams. So most of the schools, in
Mm.
fact, would discourage you for preparing for these entrance exams on the pretext that nobody gets through these exams. Why prepare? Focus on your actual school exams, school education. So they would actually discourage you
Oh my
from doing this.
god. So you were very determined because there were older people telling you, no, why bother? You're not going to make it and whatever. So when they were doing that and when they were saying they were putting those statements kind of out, what was going through your head? What did your parents say about that?
Um, Actually, in all honesty, it didn't matter as much. Like, I wasn't one of those people that oh, you are saying I won't get through, I'm gonna show you by getting, I did not take it adversely. In my mind, what's going on, like, maybe they're looking out for me. They are basically just giving me an advice that you do things right. But to me, the focus was on the inputs that I can give, where every single day I'm continuing to solve that one extra problem, read that one extra chapter, keep doing it, and see how life unfolds basically, right? So I feel like I was decently grounded with this, and I think I grew up with one of my mom's coaching here, right? That you keep giving your inputs, and output has a way of taking care for itself, right? Like, so I think I just grew up with that mindset. So it didn't budge me in a negative direction or an extremely positive direction through some competitiveness, basically.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's like, that reminds me of a saying that my mom used to have in Spanish, that she would say, you keep praying to God, but in the other end, you keep working hard, and then everything will solve at the end. So I guess like Indian moms are not very different from Hispanic moms. Like I'm looking at that. Like they're onto something. Okay, so you prepared then for 2 years for this exam, and were you only dedicated to that, or did you like some other kind of stuff like sports or anything like it, or like, or were you super keen into the computer stuff beforehand, or it was just something that came along the way?
Yeah, actually, turns out I wasn't practically exposed to any computers whatsoever until I went to IIT, which is, by the way, relatively rare, because I know folks like who have been doing computers and programming like 5 6 years before they got to IIT.
Right.
Of course, we had some computer education growing up in school, where we would do this basic GW basic programming and stuff, very very basic. But the only computer that I had access to was that 1 hour in a week when we would go to school in that computer class, right? So that's
Or
all I
in the
had.
computer class, and what they
Yeah.
were asking you that computer class to do, what kind of stuff were you guys doing?
Back then we would do this software called Paint, where you would literally draw like boxes and flags and stuff like that, or maybe do some extremely basic, very very basic programming, which almost had no significance into me learning real programming at IIT, basically.
Right. So every computer activity was like you went deep, knee deep when you got to university. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So then you prepare for 2 years, you took your exam, and then what happened?
Right. So after that, turns out, fortunately, I did get selected into IIT. Of course, I shared that in the beginning as well. And then, you go through this phase of you have to select what discipline you're going to take. Like, are you going to study computer science? Are you going to do electronics? Are you going to do mechanical? What is it that you're going to study there? And for there also, we have some combination of where what's your rank and what's your preference of studies, and based on that they assign these disciplines to you. So I ended up choosing a discipline called instrumentation engineering, that's very very close to electronics engineering, right? And
Okay.
the thing that made me interested in that discipline was, I started thinking about robotics, basically, right? That, overall,
Okay.
the field of robotics sounds interesting.
Yes.
I did not have as much exposure to computers back then, so I wasn't like extremely call it passionate about programming right getting out of my high school. But
Right.
robotics sounded very interesting, and this field s- looked like it would give me an exposure to that, basically. So I think that was one of the reasons why I ended up choosing this discipline.
It sounded like you would get the best of both worlds. You would get to build cool stuff, and then you would get that programming kind of
That's right,
thing too.
exactly. Yes,
Right,
yes,
you get to play with toys all time at all times. That's always what people like get drawn into robotics and stuff like
exactly.
that at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Oh, this is much more." All right, so you got you you didn't get into that university, but which one did you get in? Like,
I did get into IIT.
okay,
So once you get selected through an IIT exam, then you choose which there were five six I 6 7 IITs back when we were getting out. So they basically decide which of these IITs that you want to get into and which discipline that you want to take to. So I went to
right.
an IIT called IIT Kharagpur. It's actually one of the largest, the oldest IIT, the first IIT that was built in India, basically. So I went there, and I joined there in 2009.
How far was that from your home?
Not too far. It's actually in the same state, called West Bengal, and it was about a 3 hour train ride for me.
Oh, that was good. You
Yeah,
could go back home in any time and have some homemade food.
that's right. That was definitely
So,
helpful for me and my friends. I would actually literally show up to my home sometimes with a group of 10 plus friends, and I'm sure it was a lot of work for my mom, but I think she's very kind to entertain all of us at home.
Man, as a mom, I can tell you that we love that. Like, we love having our kids with their friends in the house, like at any time. My daughter that graduated high school, she's in college now. She graduated high school last year, and up until that point, they had like a tradition, her and her friends, that the day before the first day, like 2 days before the first day of school, they will have a sleepover at our house. So
Okay.
our house would be like mattresses in the living room, mattresses in the TV room, like mattresses everywhere, and they would like all of them come over here, spend the night, play, laugh. Like nobody would sleep in this house, but they would have tons of fun right before the first day of school. So
It sounds very
like
familiar to me.
and
Yeah.
yeah, like moms love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
My mom says the same thing. Yeah.
yes, like there is nothing more than a mom enjoys than seeing their kids enjoying with their friends and cooking food. Like I love that. I'm telling you that. And the kids enjoy it too because they love the food.
Absolutely.
How many of these friends are you friends with today?
Many of them. Like like I'm decently in touch with probably a couple dozen of them. I'm very close friends with um on a like at the very minimum on a monthly touch with more than 10 of them. And by the way, two of them, literally my friends from undergrad, Anurag and Abhishek, are now my co-founders. So we are likely in touch with each other probably every hour of the day.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Okay, so how was life in college when at that point and from 2009, and how long does it take in there? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years?
Yeah, so for me it was a 4 year course that I signed up for, and it was one of the best days, best periods of my life, and I'm sure that all of us think of our life that way. Like college life is great. I by the way, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing here at TrueFoundry as well. So this is also one of the highlights of my life this time period. But definitely you look at your college memories in a very cherished way. So that's that. How was life like in college? We were all staying in a hostel together. So growing up with kids from different parts of India for the first time. Remember how I grew up in the same household with the same set of people all
Right.
these years, right? And now suddenly I'm getting exposure to people from all of these different backgrounds, people with all of their unique stories. You hang out with them, you learn about different hardships that different people have went through, and how people have been exposed to very different lifestyle than mine basically. So that was a lot of fun. Studies were on a back seat until exams came about. So we would get to studies right before the exams, but somehow we would manage decently through those. I think that was for some reason like the entire culture at IIT almost encourages people to do this. Now looking back, I do not think it's like the right thing to do, but the system is designed that way. But we were just exposed to a lot of other activities, you would go follow your passion in true sense. If you are someone who is interested in playing guitar or singing or playing sports or building technology and participating in robotics clubs and any of that, right, you would get exposed to all of that, and that was front and center of your lifestyle at IIT. And that just makes develops you into a more holistic individual than how you walked into an IIT with, basically, right?
Yes. What was your favorite activity?
Yeah,
The
so I
one
ended up
your go
investing.
to.
Yeah, for sure. I actually ended up doing a lot of this technology building, getting myself exposed into the robotic side of things. So at least one of the things that I'd hoped to do, I ended up investing quite a bit of my non-classroom time in that. We ended up building out a robot. We call it autonomous ground vehicles. So all these Teslas and Waymos that you're seeing now, we were building the
Right.
early versions of that. And quite literally, during our undergrad, there is a competition that happens in the US. So we built a car. We literally brought that car with us to the US for a competition. We were the first team from India to represent ourselves here in the US. So we did a bunch of that. It was a lot of fun.
Tell me if that was your first time in the US, and which city did you go?
So actually, this was not my first time in the US. I had come in here for an internship to UC Berkeley. So Bay Area is where I first landed in the US for that internship. And as part of this this competition, we had some part of the stuff that we're doing in the Bay Area, and we also went to Michigan as well.
Oh wow! So wait, now you're telling me that you got an internship and you end up in UC Berkeley? How that happened? Tell me that story.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, at the end of my sophomore year, before UC Berkeley, I think there's a little bit more context, so I'll share that with you. First of all, there is a culture of going for internships at the end of your junior year at most of the IITs or most of the engineering colleges in India. There's some people who are very interested, who are already working in this field, would end up taking internships at the end of their freshman year and at the end of their sophomore year as well. So I happened to be on that route. So at the end of my freshman year, I did an internship at the IIT with one of the professors where I was doing some research. At the end of my sophomore year, I ended up applying to a couple of universities outside of India, and I got selected to go to Israel. There, they have an institute called Technion or Israel Institute of Technology. I guess it's just one other IIT. Where I got a chance to work on some computer vision stuff, right? So some programming stuff overall. And during my third year, which is the freshman year, sorry, the junior year, I also got a recommendation from my advisor in Israel and at Kharagpur that like it's good to engage in research and stuff. So with those recommendations, I got a chance to apply to UC Berkeley, and one of the advisors here was kicking off a new project, so he invited me to come in for that internship.
Wow, that's such an amazing like I love the internship kind of thing. Like I remember when I went to engineering school, we did the internship like the year like on junior year. I remember that. Like you do that and you for a whole semester work with this whatever company that would hire.
Company or school, yeah, yeah.
For how long did you have these internships and which one was your favorite?
So all the three internships that I talked about was about 3 months, anywhere from 11 to 12 weeks time frame. This is our summer break between the two semesters, so that's when you end up doing
Okay.
this. And I think the amount of impact that the Berkeley internship has on my life and career, I attribute Berkeley to be my favorite internship for that reason. The shared story here is that because of this internship, my advisor also invited me for a PhD program here at Berkeley as well, because the project went well. And when I came in for my postgraduate studies here in at Berkeley, that's where I also met my wife. She came in the same program as well. So well, that one internship sorted the rest of my career and the rest of my life. So I guess I attribute a lot of my life to that internship.
I think that Berkeley takes the cake here. There is no topping that. Tell me, you went through your 4 years and you did your internship in Berkeley between the summers between your junior and senior year. So you're about to finish your senior year. What's going through your head about what's gonna be next or what's my future gonna be or where am I gonna be at?
It's a great question. So after I came back from Berkeley for an internship, from the internship, I knew that my internship went well. But I of course did not know where whether I get selected for my postgraduate studies in Berkeley or not, because of course Berkeley application is also extremely competitive, right? Like pretty much the institute ranks one or two from few different IITs typically get to Berkeley, and I was not my institute rank one or two, by the way, right? So I did not know whether I would get in. Also, by the way, some backstory here. So I come from very modest, humble backgrounds, economically speaking, right? I grew up in a very just had a very humble upbringing. So I was also thinking about applying for jobs and stuff after IIT, and I ended up applying for some of these jobs. Turns out that I did get a job in Australia, um, and that would pay a lot of money, like upwards of $100,000 back then was considered like, I don't know, like
Yes.
millions right now, right?
This
Uh,
was 2014. Yes, it was
2013.
2014.
2013.
13? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, that
to
was a
put it
lot of
into
money.
perspective, our family, like our entire family's expense back then was probably sub $200 a month, right? And we are talking about $100,000 a year plus salary.
Sounds like crazy.
Yeah. So you start putting that into perspective. You're like, okay, like now we are sorted for life. So like that's one job that I got out of Kharagpur, out of IIT. And meanwhile, I had only applied to one school for my masters, right? And that was at Berkeley. Okay. And
Oh,
turns
okay.
out that because of my internship and the referral from my advisor, like his recommendation letter that he would like to have me back in his lab, I did get selected into Berkeley as well. Now, between these two, I was massively debated because I'm like, on one side, like all my financial problem for life is solved for.
Right.
And then, in all honesty, I was thinking about potentially taking that up, right? And at that point,
Right.
my dad talked me out of it. My dad was like, you're probably optimizing for the short term here, and if you think for longer period in life, being at Berkeley, being in the Bay Area, right, opens up a lot more career opportunities for you than what you would have going to Australia working for this mining company called Rio Tinto, basically. Okay, and I took his advice. I came to Berkeley, and I cannot be more thankful to him. That was such a pivotal decision in my life.
That's such a great advice, and that's such a vision, like the parent, like the dad vision that I don't know. I guess as a parent, you can see 3 steps forward somehow. And I'm so happy that you chose Berkeley over like money because at your age, how old were you when you were gonna about to graduate?
22, 23, like that. Yeah,
Yeah, at that age, 22, 23, a lot of money is a big
yeah,
temptation.
yeah.
Like it's just, but your dad was right. You were choosing short term over long term. But let
And
me
I'm
ask you,
honestly, even today when I look back at that decision, I find it very surprising, that my dad had that, that like extremely long term foresight, because on one hand it solves our entire family's problems for for forever, right? That's what you feel like. And also,
right,
it's not like my dad has been exposed to a lot of education and international exposure. Like, he probably did not have all the ideas of what's happening at Berkeley, what's happening in the Bay Area, etc., etc. So, I don't know, if he did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people, got a bunch of
wow.
advice, how did he come up? How was this so intuitive and definitive in his mind? I still don't know, but I'm glad that he had that.
What did your dad do for a living?
So at some point, in the early stage of his own career, like my dad was running a business in pneumatics, so these are like iron parts. So he would actually build machinery and send it to factories and stuff. And at a
Hmm.
later point in his life, he was working as an accountant.
Okay. Oh, numbers. There you go. My dad was an accountant too.
Okay.
Yes, but it is that thing. I think when do you have kids?
I have two kids,
Okay,
two
so when
boys.
you
Yeah.
two boys, yeah. When I have two girls,
Oh, very
when
nice.
you become a parent, it's like somehow you start like this mindset of looking 3 steps ahead on everything single thing, and I guess it's that this feeling or this looking ahead is like feed with your experience, with your life experience, with the love you have for your kids or how much you know your kids, and like you get a sense of like how my kid is gonna be happy in this or in that, and you get a feel of that. I don't know how because I can't
Correct.
explain it, but
Makes
you
sense.
you do, like you do. And then sometimes kids don't get like they don't get like super happy when you're telling them I don't think this is good, and they're like I don't think you're right, especially
Yeah,
when you're like that young that you haven't lived as long, but you think you have, and it's just super hard to give advice at that point you know
makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so you came for to Berkeley for your masters. Did you have a job other than your masters, or how do you pay your way through all those things?
Here at Ardan Labs, we believe in empowering companies to reach their full potential through innovative technology solutions. Trusted by small startups and Fortune 500 companies alike, we specialize in high-performance software consulting, training, staffing, development, and now AI. With over 14 years of experience, Ardan Labs has trained over 30,000 engineers and served over 1,000 companies worldwide. Whether you're mastering Go, Rust, Kubernetes, Terraform, or blockchain, we're your strategic partner for performance-grade solutions. Let's elevate your tech journey together. Reach out to Ardan Labs today.
So I was actually fortunate that my lab paid for my education, and besides that, I was also conducting some research because I was selected as part of this research group. I also used to get a small stipend for a living as well. Yeah, so I think that was my job basically, right?
That's awesome. You were studying and doing and working on what you actually really like. What kind of research and what kind of work were you doing in that lab?
Yeah. So so we were building software um, for designing any graph architectures. Okay.
Mhm.
So what that means is, and let me just zoom into this a little bit. So there's a lot of things in life that you can represent in the form of a graph. Like for
Mhm.
example, your phone call networks can be represented as a graph. If you're designing a power system, right, like power starting from a generator and flowing to different sinks that is consuming the power, maybe a light bulb can be represented as a graph. A lot of computer networks can be represented as graphs, right? So there's a lot of these graph related problem statements. We were trying to come up with an algorithm where you can automatically synthesize some of these graph architectures where any individual component of that graph can just fail at any point in time, but the system overall should not fail. So that's the algorithm that we were trying to come up with, and the exact use case that we were trying to do back then. So our research was sponsored by an airline company, and they were trying to design aircraft electrical power systems um, where they have enough redundancy that if something goes wrong, the system does not fail. But they also do not want to put so much redundancy that they're adding extra weight, extra cost to the aircraft. So that's what we were designing back then.
Wow. Did did you get what was your favorite thing that you learned about that thing that you are using today, or something that you kept in your head that like you were like, "Oh, I want to do this." You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think very strong foundations in math and linear algebra. Because when you're trying to do this thing, you're doing a lot of this matrix multiplication type of work. Turns out that I actually had a foundation in linear algebra. Like remember I mentioned that at the end of my first year, I ended up doing an internship in IIT itself, right?
Right?
At that point, I was implementing a lot of linear algebra algorithms on these microchips basically, not on real computers, but like these
Right.
microchips which has very limited memory and stuff. So
Uh-huh.
when you're dealing with that kind of algorithm on that kind of chip, you basically get into the nitty gritties of how those algorithms work under the hood because you have to optimize it to the T basically, right?
Right, because you have so reduced space.
Exactly. So I had done some work at the end of my first year, and this project, this research project brought back all those learnings in linear algebra, graph theory, and turns out, by the way, that as you start getting into machine learning, practically all of machine learning, neural networks and above is essentially all about linear
Right.
algebra. So I think
Yeah, it's all vectors.
yes, it's all vectors, it's all matrices. So my pretty much like the rest of my career's work is essentially the theory of that. The foundational is the foundations I built during my first year internship and during my master's projects basically.
Man, I'm glad you like linear algebra, because imagine if you hated
I know, yeah.
it. That was that was one of the classes that I enjoyed the most when I was in at college. And I remember one time I went to that class with one of my best friends, and one time the professor just took us out of the class because we were laughing or whatever. And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed taking out a class in college." It was like my second year. I was just like, I never forgot linear algebra because of that. Okay, so you're working on your master's, and what happened of your friends that you know today, were they on the same journey as you were, or were they back in India? Like your friends that you are co-founders with now.
Yeah. Great question. So, no, I think these friends did not choose the academic route. They ended up joining their jobs. So my co-founder CTO now, Abhishek, he actually got selected by Meta. Back then we called it Facebook, from the Bay Area. So he was one of the very few people from the entire country who got directly hired by Meta.
Wow.
So he came to the Bay Area and joined Meta right after that. And my third co-founder Anurag, he ended up working with this company called ITC for a few months, and then he followed his own passion where he joined a hedge fund called WorldQuant, from India directly, where he was using machine learning to build trading strategies. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my God. So you kept in touch with them and you're now working on your master's. Was this when you met your wife?
Yes, that's right. I met my wife during my master's.
How
Yeah.
do you meet her? I'm sorry to ask, but now I'm curious.
No, of course. So my we came in the same batch, 2013 is both of us is when both of us came for our masters. My wife's roommate was my lab mate.
Oh, wow.
So that's how we bunch of us started to hang out with each other, uh, and that's how we met with each other. Yeah.
Oh, that's lucky. And is she an engineer too?
Yes, she's an engineer. She actually went to one of the other IITs. She went to IIT Bombay, and then she came to Berkeley for her masters. Yeah, and she works in a actually even today she works in a very similar field as I do. She heads enterprise Gen AI for LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
Our
That's
work is
really
very
cool.
similar. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God. Well, look at all the things that had to happen for the both of you to be at the same time at the same place. And it was like the roommate of your lab partner. That's amazing to me. Like, that's always amazing to me how people meet, and like all the things that historically had to happen for two people to meet at some point in time. That's always
absolutely.
amazing to me. Okay,
Absolutely.
so how long did this master took? Like, is it 2 years or 3 years? 2 years.
Yeah, so I did this in 3 semesters, so one and
Okay.
a half years. I graduated end of 2014 from my masters, and then I ended up joining this company called Reflection, which is based in San Mateo. It is an AI company that caters the e-commerce industry.
Oh, this was what, 20, what did you say? 2014?
So yeah, so end of 2014, I graduated from my masters, and beginning 2015, I joined the company.
2015. And this company was already working with AI at that point in time?
That's right. Yes, yes.
Oh, that was like the very beginning. How was
That's
it
right.
back then? How
Uh,
how was AI different back then from AI today?
yeah, I mean, so of course, literally today, like with all the work in Gen AI, like we did not have much anything around Gen AI back then, right? So we did not have the even foundations back then. So we were working with what is known as classic machine learning and deep learning algorithms to serve these AI models for the e-commerce industry. I think that time there was this extremely popular problem statement, like recommendation systems was like the one of the hottest problems in AI back then. And I got a
Wow.
chance to work on these recommendation systems because we were serving this entire e-commerce industry, and we wanted to land on any product page, give a bunch of these product recommendations. So that's a system that we were designing back then, and it got popularized by this Netflix's recommendation system challenges. I don't know if you remember, at some point Netflix launched this public competition where they announced $1 million prize for whoever comes with the best recommendation algorithms for Netflix's movie recommendations, basically.
Oh, I had no idea. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, like literally that. So they opened up a public challenge. People would come up with algorithms. They would submit to Netflix. Whoever does the best on this movie recommendations would actually get $1 million prize. So this
Wow.
entire problem statement became too cool for that time, and I got a chance to get exposed to this problem statement right after my masters. And we were serving machine learning, building and serving machine learning models at high scale in real time. So it gave me a lot of foundational understanding of how ML algorithms work at the core level, but then also how to start designing systems that scale, right, and serve low latency traffic for all of these websites that care about their user experience quite a bit. So
Right.
that was a very interesting exposure for me.
And now everybody is getting recommendation just by your, I don't know, you sneeze and your phone
That's
starts
right.
recommending cold medicine. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Fair, fair.
Okay, so for how long were you at this company?
I was there for about 3.5 years.
And that did you switch positions or advance in the company when you were there, or you were pretty much doing the same thing?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
then how did it come that you left?
Right, right. So I was one of the very early employees in the company, got a chance to join their machine learning team. And before I quit, I got a chance to lead the entire machine learning team there as well. Got that exposure as well within the company, build out what is known as a machine learning developer platform for the entire company. Because by that time, in 3.5 years, there were multiple different teams that were using machine learning. So we ended up building out a platform layer where all the other developers within the company can build their own machine learning algorithms as well. So got
Oh,
a lot of exposure there. Um, then I
you
ended
got
up
you got a glimpse of what you're doing to there back then.
exactly,
It sounds
yes,
like the starting point of where you are today, but we're not gonna go there yet. Tell me more.
that's right, yeah.
Tell me later. So you got to lead your machine learning team, and then why did you decided to leave your company?
Right. So I decided to join, at that time, like one of the things that I wanted to do was when you work at a startup, right? And you're one of the early people at the startup and you get a chance to quote unquote rise quickly within the startup itself, you get a lot of interesting exposure about how to build systems from scratch, how to launch these applications, these models, lead team, etc. But remember, I'm still only 3.5 year out of college, right?
Right.
So I'm learning all of these things on the fly, and it's great exposure, but you're missing on one thing where you like basically anything that you do is pretty much the best, right? Because at that point,
Right.
like the baseline is nothing else exists, right?
Right. Because you're just creating stuff.
Right. Now, what I wanted to do was get an exposure where the fruits are not that low hanging, right?
Mm,
You want to reach high up to get some of the rewards essentially, where you work
okay.
in a more mature ecosystem where the low hanging fruits are already reaped and you have to do deeper research to get interesting results
Right.
out of it. And there's an ecosystem that can train you in the best practices, and you are not the one who is laying out the best practices, because that early in your
Right.
career you want to invest into your learning and growth than conquering territory basically, right? So
Yes.
that
This
was
is
the
a consistent theme, like for what I'm hearing from all your story just yet. Like it is really interesting to me that the theme of your life is always building up and not looking at the short term satisfaction and rather the long term result. Like I love that. I love that.
I
so
appreciate it.
so you decide to find this place where you're gonna get the exposure to bigger challenges and learning better and bigger things.
Yeah.
Where did you find that?
I ended up joining Meta after that. So I got a chance to lead one of their own machine learning teams, and work on problem statements where you have to, for example, as I mentioned that back at Reflection, we'd build out simple machine learning algorithms, and that would give us huge boost in the results. But all those simple algorithms were already tackled at Meta. So when you want to get these results, then you have to really get inside the model and build deeper models, bigger models. So this thing that we talk about Gen AI today, using some of the transformer based models, etc., etc. I got
Mm-hmm.
exposure to all that stuff at Meta because this was the cutting edge research back then.
Right, that's what they were looking into, and that's what everything was headed. Oh, so you got your work cut out for back then.
That's right.
How long did you stay in Meta? And how many, what were the best experiences or the best teaching moments for you there?
Yeah, so I was there at Meta for about a couple years. There were the first thing that I loved about my time at Meta is you get to go extremely deep into building these machine learning models, right? Now you're talking about like extremely deep technology, research paper quality stuff that you're working on, and not like just churning out systems basically, right? Like you're
Mhm.
like going super deep into the algorithm. So I think that was a very helpful exposure. I got a chance to work in the conversational AI team at Meta, right? So that exposure was very helpful. The second thing, which was more of an like a couple of things around leadership that just caught my attention while I was there at Meta. Like one of these things that stood with me was Zuck holding these weekly Q&A session with the entire company, right, in an all hands setting, where anybody in the company can raise up questions, and like Zuck would come to the stage and answer these questions. And there were some tough questions out there, like people would not leave things easily, right?
Wow.
And here's the CEO of a public company comes every week to the stage and answers these
To
questions for
get
me.
grilled.
Right, to get grilled. Yes, exactly, right. And you could see the honesty with which people would um of course there's lots of things that we hear about at Meta that is not being done right, and this of course all these controversies about it. But the
Right.
fact that a CEO open themselves up to this kind of grilling and holds a bunch of honest leading within the company was a learning experience for me, that if you lead the team with truth, it matters. So I think that was one thing that I took away. The second thing is another extremely long term thinking. So of course back then it was not called Meta, it was called Facebook. All these apps were surfaced through iOS and Android and stuff like that.
Right.
And there was a learning that we were just trying to talk about all of these devices, Oculus, glasses, Portal, like
Right.
Meta becoming a hardware company. We started to talk about that, and the point there was that we are the best apps out there potentially, but we have to play the rules that is being set by Apple and Google, right? They control the ecosystem. We are the app layer.
Right.
So the
You're doing
next
your
big
app
win that
and
we
their
want.
devices.
Exactly. The next big win that we want is we want to control the ecosystem. So Meta as a company started to invest into Meta, like the metaverse of it basically. Now of course many years later, of course that bet hasn't paid off very well, and it actually doesn't matter what the exact result is, but the point is that kind of thinking that you want to hold that entire ecosystem and you're positioning yourself there and you're ready to pivot to what is relevant in the very long term. Those kind of bold bets actually gave me lots of interesting leadership lessons at Meta.
Yeah, because that's your kind of philosophy, your life philosophy, like
Yes.
investing in the long term results and stop playing it safe and take risk in order to get good rewards, right? That's amazing. So for how long? You were like there like 3 years, you said?
About 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
And what happened? What how come you were enjoying this? Because it sounds to me that you were enjoying it a lot.
Right.
That you got to the point to where you said, okay, I learned what I learned and now I'm ready to move on. Like what drove that thought?
Yeah. So let me share another my transition story from Reflection to Meta with you, because I think me leaving from Meta has some roots into me just joining Meta. Okay.
Okay.
So when I started interviewing out of Reflection, right, you start giving your software engineer, ML engineer interviews that you were conducting, and turns out that these interviews are fairly standardized across most of the big tech companies. The interview process is very similar. And of course, when you're interviewing, you have to take time off work because you have to go give these interviews, and sometimes you have to
Right.
make excuses, and it just doesn't feel good with the people that you have, it's your first job, you have to make these excuses.
Right.
And every time you go for the interview, the questions are very similar. I wish there was an SAT kind of a thing where I give my SAT once, the
And then
scores
send
are
it to
there,
everybody.
others can do it. So at least the repetitive parts of interviews I don't have to give and keep making this excuse. Okay.
That
So the
you're not
problem
wrong.
statement hit me. So the problem statement hit me, but of course, I moved on, I joined Meta. Then when you join Meta, you go through this interviewer training process where they train a lot of these interviews to conduct consistent interviews, right, where everybody's feedback is fairly similar on these interviews, and they have like 10,000 engineers that they're training them on, right? And then this hit me that if Meta can train 10,000 engineers to conduct interviews alike and give standardized feedback, why can we not do the same thing outside of Meta, right? Where this problem statement of creating this SAT for interviews type of thing that had hit me can be solved outside of Meta, basically, right? Like, why
Right.
can we not train a lot of engineers outside and have this standardization across interviews? It saves the interviewee bandwidth, it saves the interviewer bandwidth, it improves your hiring velocity, where hiring is a big challenge, right? So it saves a
Yes.
lot of things. So the thesis made sense to me, and then I got a chance to talk to Abhishek about this. By the way, remember my co-founder CTO Abhishek was also at Meta, so we caught up
Yes.
for lunch. We got a chance to discuss this idea, and he mentioned that like yes, this sounds like a very legit problem and a problem that we can truly solve, where we can create this SAT for tech interviews type of a thing. And then we also discussed about this with Anurag, who was back then was at WorldQuant, and the three of us invested some time into thinking about this problem statement. It made sense to us, so we decided to quit our jobs to solve this problem statement. So that's our story
Oh
of
my
Meta.
God. So your other friend left Meta too at the same time you did?
Yeah, just a
Oh
few
my
weeks here and
God.
there. Yeah.
Oh my God. So, no, this is a lot to cut to. Okay. So you guys decide to leave.
Yes,
How were you going to find that? Were you married at that time?
I was married. Yeah.
Okay. What did you. I have so many questions. Okay. There's so many questions right now. So, first, what did your wife say when you said, okay, I'm going to quit my job at Meta because I am going to solve a problem? So, what did she say?
Yeah, I think she was extremely supportive. She was supportive back then. She is supportive today. All these years she has been very supportive about this. I think she like when she heard that I'm passionate about starting up, solving some of these problems, taking up some of these initiatives, and she knew a part of my personality why she was very supportive towards this. So I'll give you like one more story here. Like there's always layers to your life stories, right? So
Yes.
um, she has found me happiest during my job when I'm part of a project where I have been from the inception of it, from the beginning of it, right? Where I see an idea, implement that thing, and take it to life. That's where I have really enjoyed my work during my jobs. If you think about starting up, like that's just the extreme version of it, right? Where you're literally
Right.
coming up with an idea and seeing that idea come to life basically. So she's like, if you're
Right.
gonna enjoy this a lot, it makes sense that we commit to this as a couple. And in all honesty, I think the fact that she was very supportive and then she was doing a job herself also gave me a lot of just confidence financially speaking, right? Because most families in the world
Right.
run with one person's salary. So we were like, okay, she can be that stable source within the family, and I can go try to do something big, something crazy.
That's amazing. That when you have that support, you have half of the battle won
Exactly.
because you're in a great mind space to start your thing. So the three of you started this. Where so two of you were in the US. Was your other friend in the US or was he in India?
He's in Singapore. So
He's in Singapore.
Anurag actually spent a couple of years after undergrad in India. Then he moved to the US for a couple of years. Then he went back to Singapore for a couple of years. So he actually split his time quite a bit.
Oh, okay, cool. So the two of you and then your other friend and you start this. Is this how TrueFoundry started, or this was different from
This is
TrueFoundry?
a different company. So yeah, I'll
Okay.
share a little bit of that story. So we started a company called Entire. This was in the talent space, trying to come up with this SAT for interviewing. The three of us temporarily got back in India together in Bangalore. And the timing could not have been worst or best depending on how you look at it. We got to Bangalore in March of 2020. Remember what we
Lord.
did in March of 2020?
Oh my God.
So
That was deep date.
yeah. So we went to a friend's place. We got to a friend's place who would temporarily host us for a few days until we find some kind of residence in Bangalore temporarily. And within those few days there was a lockdown in India that was announced. So we got stuck into this friend's place who was so kind to host us. But now the three of us coming back from different countries have nowhere else to go in Bangalore. And we were in this two-bedroom apartment where one bedroom was taken by this friend, and the three of us, the three co-founders, got stuck into a single room where we would lay out mattress and just stay with each other for many weeks to come after that, basically.
Oh my God, that was like you guys were back in college.
Exactly. Yeah, it literally felt like we were back in undergrad, and for that period of time, I was living away from my wife, and the three of us were just hanging out with each other, ideating how to build the company and all of that.
How long do you had to stay in Bangalore?
A few months actually. We ended up spending like 2.5 3 months in that setting. And then because of COVID, and after that, the world opened up, so my wife also came back to India from the US because it was all locked down. She was anyways working remotely, so if she was working
Right.
remotely, we can all spend some time in India together. So we ended up doing that. And then after a few months, we just went back to the Bay Area, my wife and I.
Okay. Okay. That like it has a happy. This story has a happy ending. I see it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we are still together.
Yeah. No, I would
So,
be so mad if like, okay, I'm going on a business trip and then like,
and
oh,
then you get
yeah,
stuck.
by
Yeah.
the way, I can't get back. Oh my God. That's so crazy. Okay, so you spent the pandemic in India, which I don't mind. Like, if I spend by the time of the pandemic, I was teaching computer science and robotics in middle school, and we went on a spring break. And during that spring break, that was in March, they told us, by the way, we're not coming back to school. You're gonna start classes on Zoom. Figure it out.
Got
and
it.
that was, and that was like at that time it was just crazy.
Crazy
And two
times. Yeah.
kid and two kids, so it was me and the laptop giving class with two kids figuring out computers at that point. It was just crazy. Do you have kids at that time?
No, we didn't have kids then. Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay,
makes
thank God.
things easier. Yeah.
Yeah, that made it easier. Okay, so you spent, and this was 2020. You spent all these months in India. Did you guys figure it out your SAT idea for hiring at that point?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we kicked off. We built the product. We kicked off the company. We started getting customers. We spent about a year building, building the company, getting customers, and we're quite decently successful. We got maybe about 40, 50 customers in the first year. And then in 2021, we applied to YC, Y Combinator, where we got selected into YC as well. So, things were going decently well with Entire. I'm sure that you have follow-up question on then what happened. So I might as
Yes,
well jump in.
of course.
Yeah. So now, let me remind you of the idea. We said that Meta had these 10,000 engineers that they had trained to conduct standardized interviews, and we wanted to replicate that machinery outside of Meta. So where
Right.
we said we are going to hire freelance interviewers and we are going to train them on our standardized processes and create a entire certified SAT score for interviewing, right? So remember that people are in the mix of this problem statement, and we targeted the segment that we would serve, which is fast growing startups, tech startups. Basically, that's the segment of customers that we're going after, because
Right.
that's probably the easiest segment that we can reach out to within our own network. And they're also
Right.
fast at trying out new things. So that was the instinct with which we had started.
Yeah,
We
it
could
only makes
not be
sense.
more wrong. We could not have been more wrong. Okay.
What
uh,
happened?
so what we realized is that while everything on paper looked great, we were building a good business, we're getting good customers, getting good revenue, etc., etc. We realized that if we keep doing this thing, there was some just fundamental flaws in our business model, that we could reach to a few million in revenue, build a solid lifestyle business, but not a massively scalable business that we aspired to build, basically. Okay, that we would hit a
Okay.
ceiling. We would hit a ceiling in the approach that we were taking. We
Right.
started realizing these gaps in our business model altogether.
Yeah, it
Now,
was too niche.
it was too niche, it was too human intensive, too operation intensive. And the one other thing that we learned while building the business was that actually most people in this industry didn't care about the product. People cared about the outcomes
Mm.
only, where it ended up becoming a very operation intensive business. So it was not a terrific founder market fit. We come from technology background, and we found
Right.
ourselves doing a lot of operations and operations only, so not a great founder market fit. So we started
Mm.
having these realizations between the time we applied to YC And between the time we got selected into YC and we had our first partner conversations, we had these realizations internalized more deeply within us. Okay, now here's where serendipity comes in. So I'm not going to name the partner and the company and stuff because like their own privacy, but like I think you'll get the point. The partner that we got selected, like that got assigned to us at YC, just so happened to have tried building a similar company right before joining YC. They spent about 4.5 years building that, and then he quit that company, joined YC. They had raised more than 35 million in funding. And we were talking to him that, hey, we are building this, all good, but we are realizing these fundamental flaws in here. What do you suggest? And he was like, actually, good for you that you have identified these fundamental flaws so early on in the journey of the building company. We realized these 4 years later and 35 million of funding later. And sounds like there is actually no solution to this problem that you're talking about. You are better off building something completely different. Okay.
Oh my God. What year was this?
This is 2021. So we just spent about a year
2021.
building it.
Okay.
2020 is when we
Okay. It was
started.
a very
2021
short
is
amount of time. That's good. That's good.
so we did that. We realized that like we got more validation, more fundamental validation where somebody has tried to do something similar. And it so turns out that there was a large enterprise in India that was trying to crack this startup segment, tech startup segment back then, that they were trying to build a very similar business as well. So we ended up exiting our business to this company. Like, so they acquired our company. And then
Okay.
the three of us got back to drawing board about what is it that we are doing next. And that's the founding story of TrueFoundry. But
Oh my God. Why AI? How did you get to that point where, because I'm guessing that what you're promoting now as this uh, base for all your models and agents and everything to work in, that back in 2021, that it sounds like fairly recent, but in AI years is like a lot of time. So how did that look back then, and how did the idea of this product that you have today was, or was it even like the first idea?
yeah. I'll give some context here. So actually, even this idea of what we are working on at True Foundry comes from one of the dinner table conversations between Anurag, Abhishek, and I, where we were building a lot of machine learning algorithms even at Entire. Okay, in our
Mm.
product itself. And what we realized is we Abhishek and I were fresh out of Meta back then, right? So at Meta
Right.
we had access to this amazing platform that we had developed, like that was there at Meta. We could work a lot faster on machine learning, ship models, applications super fast. And out of Meta, you start realizing the lack of those tools, trying to work in the public cloud
Uh,
ecosystem.
right. Like this is Meta. This is available at Meta because it's Meta, you know?
Yes,
Like because
yes,
they have the building and the buying power to do that. But how,
yes.
and then how do we get this? Oh, I see that.
So
Okay.
that was the conversation, and we were like, this is a legit problem, right? Where, and by the way, remember that I have had some experience of building a similar ML platform back at Reflection as well.
Right.
That was, call it a basic platform. Then we were fortunate to be experiencing this world-class sophisticated platform at Meta, and now here we are back again in the public cloud ecosystem without any internal platform whatsoever, basically, right? So we saw this mid-scale, best scale, and like nothing at all type of these different variations of ML platform, right? So we got this exposure, and when we started thinking the second order problem of it, the third order problem of it, that why is the world comfortable with it, right? Why is Meta building this out? Why is Uber building this out? But why does any other large enterprise not care about it? Like why does the world not care about a problem statement like this, basically? So when we
And
started peeling layers of that onion, we realized that these very large companies are building models at a scale that is unprecedented. Like at Meta, we were building more than 5,000 models in a year. As an individual developer, I can build a machine learning model, launch it on 10,000 nodes or 10,000 computers by myself without depending on anyone else.
right.
Whereas other large enterprises out there were maybe building 5, 10, 20 models in a year, right? They were just not using machine learning at that scale. And our hypothesis, knowing the field of machine learning, was that or like, yeah, this hypothesis was that at some point, machine learning will go through an inflection point.
Uh-huh.
When that inflection point comes, people will realize that this public ecosystem that they have on building shipping machine learning models will not scale to that like level. And the moment that happens, they're going to start needing a platform like that of Meta internally. So that was our
Mm,
hypothesis with which we had started TrueFoundry, end of 2021.
wow. So when was the last, like, how long did this process took to build that, and how many people were involved in it at that point?
Yeah, yeah. So realistically, it was most of the discussions were between the three of us as founders back then. Of course, we had a small team at Entire, like, and we had most of the team get acquired as part of Entire by the acquiring enterprise that we got. So, like, it was pretty much the three of us on the drawing board thinking about this. We spent like about 3 months doing the research, 3 4 months doing the research, talking to a lot of people, refining our idea. Like, we had more than 200 plus like interviews that we took for leaders at Fortune 500 enterprises, to startup founders, to ML
Did you
leaders, to
use your
developers.
previous product for those interviews?
Um, yeah. So, so we definitely ended up leveraging like the parts of our previous product for conducting some of this. And by the way, the fun fact, even today, our hiring is done on that product that we had built as part of Entire.
That's amazing. That's like, I was wondering that when you said I will hire a team, and I was like, ah, and my head went straight
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
have the tool. So hiring for you is based in that number. And then what else do you consider? And where is most of your employees? Are they US based? Are they India based? Or are they from anywhere else? Like, if somebody wants to work for you, what would they have to look into, or what would they
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
do, or like, what's the process?
yeah. So we are based in like in the Bay Area. Like we have an office here in the Bay Area. We have an office in Boston, um, and a larger team in Bangalore, and we also have a few people in London as well. So these are the four cities that we operate out of.
Oh,
And we
wow.
do have a hybrid work culture. So we are not a fully remote company. So people come to the office 2 to 3 days a week in these cities.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. It's like the perfect balance between remotes and like the, yeah, I love that. So you started producing this product. When in time was the first time that your product was like live for companies to buy it, and what did you find, or what things did change with the, because like in the past, I don't know, let's say in the past 3 years, like AI has been making like gigantic jumps in terms of models and agents and all that. And like every day a model gets refreshed, I don't know how many times a day. Like, how has that like, how was that back then, and how has this changed in comparison to today?
Right. So well, we we started to give some version of the product in the hands of our design partner within 2 months of us building the product, basically starting to build the product. So in actually already in February 2022 we had landed like our first design partner to co-develop the product with us. But remember, like we are building a production machine learning infrastructure, and that kind of product doesn't get built so quickly. So like these are not production workloads right now, these are like just literally
Right.
design partners. It took us more than a year to get to a point where we were now trying to support production workloads for some of our customers. So I would say like the objective answer to your question is, it was um, after 1 year of us trying to build the product is when we truly were ready to sell it.
And then who was the first company that you sold it to?
Yeah. So, like another relatively fortunate story, there's a very large conglomerate, a very large enterprise in India called Reliance. They had an arm where they were doing medicine delivery.
Oh,
So, like, we got a chance to work with that arm of Reliance as our first design partner.
oh, wow. So your first launch, and how did that go? When that went live, was it like crazy? And did you find a lot of things to fix, or it was like a smooth ride into your first live thing?
Yeah. Nothing in the initial journey of building the product is a smooth ride, right, Ali?
I know that was a
Uh,
trick question, my bad.
yeah. I got the point that this question is rhetorical. Yeah.
I know
So
everybody thinks like, everybody's think like let me rephrase that. Non-tech people think that startups are all like magic and they just like go live and everything is beautiful. But people that are in tech, they know what it is. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, I mean, like there's lots of things that you're working towards, right? At that point, like when you start work building a product, these large enterprises would have some requirements about, oh, you want to run your product within our own infrastructure, so you build out that entire plumbing layer of how can you ship your software into customers' infrastructure. Different customers, different design partners would come in, they have different cloud requirements, you start building that out, right? At that point you do not have the luxury that you can call all the shots, especially when you're working with these large companies, right? So you also have this constant debate, what should we build, what should we punt, what should we put our foot down, that this is not the direction that we will go in, right? So you're having all those debates of what's the right scope of your product that you're building, what do you expand into, what do you let be, right? So you're having all of those discussions. Is this even the right segment that you're selling into? Maybe Reliance is just too big a company to work with as your first design partner. So you're having all of those debates of building the company. And at that point we had built out this small team of engineers who was starting to build out the product as well. And then at that early team of engineers and go to market people that you get on the team effectively as are acting as founders within the company, right? They are all coming in with ideas, this segment we should try. So people are running different kind of experiments, different lenses with which they're pitching the product. So we were all out experimenting in the entire year, building the product and experimenting. It was
Right.
a huge mess. It was not at all a smooth ride.
Well, it's like this every startup is like an like an AI model itself, you know?
Yes,
Like it's training itself. Every client is a learning opportunity, you know?
yes,
Like every
absolutely.
time you have a new client, you just move forward and move forward. So you've been going at it since 2021, and you how much AI has changed the game between when you started and today?
Well, two-part answer to this question, and this is where I think some of the of course, how much AI has changed, AI has changed the world, and AI itself, the perception of AI has foundationally changed about how we used to think about AI back then, right? But if you go one layer deeper, right, and you start thinking in terms of the architecture and infrastructure lens, you start seeing that the world is not so fundamentally different as it used to be in the past. And this is where the founding story of TrueFoundry is slightly helpful as well, where our roots are remember that our roots are from Meta's internal ML platforms, right?
Yes.
And while Gen AI and transformers are known the way they are to the world after ChatGPT launched, the
Right.
technology is much older than that, right? And at
Right.
Meta, we were already building these GPU based models, these transformer based models. So when we used to think about ML platform at Meta, this was taken care of. This was taken for granted, right? So when we
Right.
designed True Foundry from our inspiration from Meta, this was taken care of for granted, basically, right? So we started in 2022 beginning where we built a platform that was already ready to design and build models like that of GPT from an infrastructure lens, right?
Right.
So when ChatGPT launched, we did not have to make any architectural foundational changes in the product that we were building. We were thinking of machine learning and it would support LLMs by default, right? And
Right.
we won't take
Because
credit
that's
for it.
what
It was
they
built
do.
at Meta. Exactly. So
That's genius. Okay.
well, like that, or that's lucky, right? I really give the credit is not to us, the credit is to Meta, where we were fortunate to be in a place where we had a few years ahead of time had experience with that technology, and with that inspiration we had 1 year of head start into building that into our product. So when ChatGPT was launched and when people started thinking about, oh, I want my custom small language models, I want to run Llama on my own infrastructure. Most enterprises did not know how to run scaled GPU based models, etc. That's when our
Right.
startup started, our infrastructure started to take off. People started to building out RAG applications, and they were like, "There's nobody else that's supporting it." Oh, TrueFoundry is supporting it. Great. So that's when we started landing our meaningful customers, and that's when we landed our first large US enterprise customer.
Oh, who was?
That
Can
was
you say
in think about one of the extremely large pharma companies. So like
it?
massively regular.
Okay.
I don't take the name of the customer, but like an extremely large pharma company,
Okay.
very
Wow.
reputable, that started leveraging us basically.
That's such an unexpected business to me to be at, but like that's amazing. Like, where is True Foundry headed to? Like, where do
Yeah.
you see it?
For sure. So today we now like let me put this into perspective of what we're talking about. So we are running an ML infrastructure, AI infrastructure platform where people can run their models, people can run their ML applications, and it's built on the stack from Meta, where we think of machine generative AI as a special case of machine learning as a special case of software. So you can run this entire thing in a verticalized stack on top of TrueFoundry, right? That's what we are our foundational principle is.
Right?
And as the world is evolving from 2023 to 2024, the world is trying to build out agentic systems. That's what really is driving most of the generative AI economy, if I may.
Right?
Agentic systems at the very core are like software APIs. An agent is essentially a software API
Yes.
that deals with large language model at its core, which is a machine learning model basically.
Right?
Bou- the boundary between software and machine learning is blurring with agentic system coming together, which is one of the foundations of our infrastructure management basically. So we started supporting these agentic workloads. Okay.
Okay.
And as our enterprise customers started building out these agentic workloads, they realized this entire stack is getting out of hands. Like different LLM providers, OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, open source models, different MCP servers, these tools about Slack and Gmail and
Yes.
Atlassian that these models need access to, and different agents like that are taking actions. How do you control all of these things into one place? How do you build these agentic applications and control these in one place was the most important type of ML application that they wanted to run. So TrueFoundry ended up building out one more product on top of our stack that we call as AI Gateway, which is this gateway to connect all of these models and applications into one place, so that your agentic
Okay.
workloads can be built using TrueFoundry. So that's what we ended up building over the last 2 years or so. And
That's great.
as of today, we can have these agentic applications built using our AI Gateway product, and then they can be executed as workloads using our original AI deployment product, as we call it now, where you can have
Mm.
any machine learning workloads, be it an LLM or be it an agent, can run using our original AI deployment product. So that's what TrueFoundry is about today. AI Gateway to build agents and govern agents, and AI deployed to run these agents and manage the infrastructure around.
That's so amazing and crazy to think of, because all of the things that have to like work together in order to like, how do you keep this, for lack of a better word, machine running smoothly? Because if you have so many components stack upon another, then one thing can throw the game of the whole thing. So how, what is the biggest challenge in doing that?
So I will first of all mention what works for us very nicely, like what makes it easier for us to run this machinery from a technological standpoint, and I will talk about some of the operational challenges around this as well. So remember that I mentioned that software, machine learning, generative AI are all parts of the same stack fundamentally, right? Which means that we think of these applications in their rawest forms. We call them primitives, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and these primitives don't change every few months. Like in the AI world, like it seems like the world is changing every few weeks, but these primitives do not change, right?
Right.
So what happens is the way I think about this AI world is evolving is the modus operandi of every week can be different. Like at some point it was
Mm.
RAG, then it was agents, then it was multi-agentic system, then MCPs, then A2A, then skills. All of these things keep coming up. The primitives do not change. So
Okay.
so long as our foundation, because our foundation was built using this extremely deeply technical stack, every time a new thing comes, it's we can represent them on the same architecture. We don't have to overhaul our platform at all. Okay.
Right.
Keep
Your
adapting to this
architecture
world.
is adaptable to the new
Exactly.
things coming in. And it's
Yeah.
like it's some things are interchangeable.
Exactly. So, and because of that foundation layer, we keep adapting to the requirements of the market very well. So I think that keeps us grounded, that keeps us going, without needing to overhaul things every single day. That's the nice thing. What is not very nice is, you still have to think about all of these operations, and as you keep building out this product, the breadth of your product increases, the operations around the product itself increases, the know-how of the team now starts to become siloed, right? So like one of the problems operationally that we are trying to solve right now is we have 100 people team. Different people have specialized into different parts of the product, different types of the customers that they deal with, different types of answers that they can give. And how do you build out now this machinery where this knowledge can be transferred to everyone else, where people can run this machinery in a more scalable manner? As of today, founders have become almost this bottleneck where they have just too much context, and different teams do not have all that context. So I think that's the
Oh,
operational nightmare that we are currently trying to solve for, basically.
oh, I see. Wow, you have your work cut out for the next few years, and I think there's a lot of things happening that are gonna make it possible. I have one more question. Um, have you well, you implement all this in the cloud, right? Like depending which cloud anybody uses, AW, whatever. Have you found an alternative to like do it locally? Like how can a company say like, okay, I want to do it locally for I don't know security or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is
Actually,
there
we
a
do it.
way to do it? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah. We do it today. So our platform can run on any of the big public cloud providers, but also on our enterprise customers, their own data centers, their own local infrastructure as well, without depending on the cloud. So we support it today, and it is doable. And this was always part of our architecture, and that's why we remember you were surprised at that pharma company as our first customer. This is actually one of the reasons that we are one of the few software that can run completely within customers' infrastructure and help them with their generative AI workloads.
That's amazing. That's super impressive, and it reduces cost because we
Right.
don't have to be
Yes.
counting tokens. You know, like
Yes.
that's a great cost for a big company. All right, this right through history that brought us to today and what your True Foundry is doing. It's been amazing. I want to ask you a final question. What is the most important thing that throughout all this journey you have learned that you didn't know back then when you were in college? Like what would you say to yourself back in the day? Like what advice would you give yourself to yourself back in the day before any of this started?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I have learned over the years is it is extremely critical that you spend time into doing whatever it is that you're doing, and try to be best at it. Okay. And there's a very specific lens with which I think about, that particular advice that I would give to myself. And let me zoom into this. Right. Oftentimes, when we are working on cool problem statements, we enjoy, and then when our work starts to become slightly uncool, we start feeling like, oh, like what am I doing with my life? Is this right? Is this not right? Etc. And I would give an advice to myself back then that no matter what you're doing, do it so well that you just feel proud of that work itself, even if that work itself was not interesting. Now, I'm not advising myself or other junior people, younger people, to not think back and reflect. Like you should periodically think that directionally are you headed in the right direction with whatever you're doing. But you should not, while it should be periodic, it should not be frequent. Like you should not wake up every single day questioning what you're doing is right or wrong. And
Right, there is a
focus on
balance.
execution. Focus on execution, because world class execution, sometimes even on mundane problem statements, teach you so much about what you can achieve is crazy. And when you're trying to when you grow up in your career, when you grow in your career, you realize that oftentimes you are doing a lot of these mundane tasks, and world class execution on those things with a lot of passion is what sets you apart from someone else who always worked on the sexier, the cooler problem statements out there, right? So
Yes. Yes, I think that is a great advice. Like not always success. is not always the flashiest task, you know?
Yes.
Like it takes a lot of little boring
Yes.
things
Yes.
in order to get to success, whatever that is for you. That's
And one other
amazing.
thing, one other lens, one other thing that unlocks for you is at some point as you start growing up in your career, you start realizing that it's about the people that you worked with. And at some point in your career today, when you're working on that mundane task and still you are doing excellently at that task, people around you are also seeing that you do whatever you do with that kind of passion. And later in your career you start seeing these are the people who just want to come back and work with you because they saw what you did back then, right? So there's a compounding factor to this. You grow personally and your ecosystem grows around with you, and all of that starts compounding in life.
Yes, and like everything is somehow correlated, and it like is I will never forget this, and I will always repeat it to my daughters all the time since they were little. And it's something that stuck with me from engineering school. And I hated thermodynamics when I was back then. But the second law of thermodynamics, it was amazing to me because the teacher that taught me back then, he simplified it in this way. He said, nothing is free. And whatever you put in is whatever you're going to get out. And like, I think people don't think enough about that. That even if it's boring or just you feel that it's not important, at the end of the day, the sum of all those unimportant things that you're doing at any given moment are going to add up to the result you got, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Th- Thank you so much for being with us today, Nikunj. And one more thing. If somebody want to reach out to you because they have questions, because they want to work for you, because they're curious about your product, how they can reach you.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best place to find me. And I'm super active there. People can DM me. I'm generally would respond to folks reaching out.
Perfect. So LinkedIn, you are going to find Nikunj there, right? All
Yes.
right, everybody. Thank you so much to our special guest today, Nikunj Bajaj. And this is Ali Kennedy signing off from the Ardan Labs podcast. Thank you so much and see you next time.